Hi, my name is Amy Jiang, and I am a graduate student in the Department of Organization, Workforce, and Leadership Studies at Texas State University. This presentation is an assignment for my course of Human Systems in the Workplace. This assignment requires me to apply systems theory and complexity sciences that I have learned through this course to describe a hypothetical organization from a film with terms associated with complex adaptive systems and complex responsive processes. The film I have chosen to present is The Devil Wears Prada, a film released in 2006, produced by Wendy Finerman, directed by David Frankel, and starred by famous actors such as Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, Emily Blunt, and Stanley Tucci. The reason I chose this film because I have a very similar work experience as the character Andy did in this film, and I can relate and reflect on my own experience about the organizational life portrayed in this film. I am also interested in the topic of fashion and always curious about how designer brands define and shape the fashion trends. In this presentation, I will first provide a summary of the film and then move on explaining the applications of both complex adaptive systems and complex responsive processes in the organizational life portrayed in this film. In conclusion, I will share some of my closing thoughts as well as attach the citations I have referenced. In New York, Andrea Sachs, or Andy, is a simple, fresh graduate who is hired to work as the second assistant of the powerful and sophisticated Miranda Priestley, the ruthless and merciless executive of the runway fashion magazine. Andy dreams to become a journalist and faces the opportunity as a temporary professional challenge. The first assistant, Emily, advises Andy about the behavior and preferences of their crew boss, and the fashion director, Nigel, helps Andy to dress more adequately for the environment. Andy changes her attitude and behavior, affecting her private life and the relationship with her boyfriend, her family, and friends. In the end, Andy learns that life is made of choices. First, let's take a look how complex adaptive systems apply in this film. Complex adaptive systems emphasize the role of agents and adopt the view that individual agents interact with and adapt to each other, and in doing so form a system which could also be thought of as a population-wide pattern. In this film, the agents are the people in the runway fashion magazine, including the powerful editor of Runway, Miranda Priestley, her first assistant, Emily, the fashion director, Nigel, and Andy Sachs, who was Miranda's second assistant. Miranda, as the powerful and dominant goddess of fashion, sets the rules for Runway magazine and the fashion world. Emily is terrified by Miranda and follows Miranda's rules strictly, such as not leaving the front desk phone unattended at any minute. Nigel follows the rule that Miranda's opinion is the only one that matters when coming to make decisions. Andy had her own rules at the beginning, dressing casually and didn't care about fashion when she was first hired, but then had to adapt to the rules set by her work environment, such as dressing fashionably to show that she has interest in her job. Complex adaptive systems is also concerned about self-organization of the components in the system and how small changes affect the emergence of the whole, or ripple effect, as mentioned by Dr. Sharon Harsh. In the film, Miranda explained to Andy how the blue color of her sweater became a fashion statement. The color first appeared on the cover of a fashion magazine and quickly appeared in 8 other designers' collections and eventually made its way to the secondary designers, the department store labels, and then became a trend. This example shows that the emergence of fashion is not determined or organized by one single person. Instead, it is formed by various agents and elements through self-organized activities at different time and space. The collectiveness of the self-organization leads to the emergence of the whole. Now, let's turn our attention to complex responsive processes and how the theories and concepts in the complex responsive processes apply to this film. First, from the perspectives in complex responsive processes, relationships between people are organized in conversation, which is shaped by and shapes the power relations between them. In the film, Miranda rarely had any conversations with any of her staff. Her communication style was featured by short, demanding orders and sometimes even rude manners, which signal her absolute power in the organization. The conversations between Emily and Andy reflect their relationship and power relations in the organization. As Miranda's first assistant, Emily was condescending when she talked to Andy, who was at the lower rank than Emily. Almost all of their conversations were work-related, which implies that their relationship in the organization was not very personal. Secondly, in complex responsive processes, intentions also emerge in the conversational pattern of relating. A good example in the film that we can apply this concept is when Andy went to talk to Nigel after she was humiliated by Miranda in the office. The conversation between Nigel and Andy showed Nigel's intention to help Andy as a young professional who had very little knowledge and experience about organizational life. Through this conversation, Andy felt comfortable relating to Nigel and they formed a friendship. Furthermore, according to complex responsive processes, power differences establish groupings in which some people are included and others are excluded. Power is thus felt as the dynamics of inclusion and exclusion. In the film, when Andy started working at Runway magazine as a newcomer and didn't dress adequately to her work environment, she took the role of the disadvantaged and the excluded. Emily, as an established staff in the office, belonged to the included club for gossip, and she exercised her power over Andy by asking Andy to run all the office errands. The dynamics of inclusion and exclusion in the film clearly portrayed the power relations and the power differences. Overall, we can say that Miranda is the inhibitor of the change process at Runway magazine. Her ideology that she has the absolute control of the company and she needs to remain power in the fashion industry inhibited Runway magazine from having another leader who could bring innovative ideas. Although the film didn't explicitly show how Miranda involved with the organization, the last smile on her face when running into Andy across from the street indicated some subtle change had happened to Miranda. In conclusion, organizations are complex systems that we can use perspectives from both complex adaptive systems and complex responsive processes to understand organization dynamics and human systems in the workplace. Here are the citations I have used for this presentation. You can pause to review. Thanks for watching.